أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome everyone again to another episode on the EndGame Islam channel. Today we have Brother Owais and Brother Igor, and today's topic is a very unique one, as everyone knows, and everyone is aware of the eschatology that is in Islam and has basically two different tales. One of the Quran and one of the hadith. So it's up to the viewers to choose which one you follow, because both have different paths, I guess you could say. And so Brother Igor has made us a very nice slide here. So Brother Igor, if you could go through your slide, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I think it's a important topic that I never thought I would really delve into, because there was a time when I just was sold on the entire idea and the story. And the more I think of it with, the work Brother Owais has been doing, and all of the EndGame team, with regards to the hour and the day of resurrection, it really does seem like we have been sold the story, almost as if we're, destined in a way, because people have behind the scenes planned everything out for us. And this is why I titled the presentation Counterfeiting the Apostle. Do understand, like you mentioned, that the world is that some that are much more have used that to their advantage to deceive a lot of humanity into accepting something that has no basis in the Quran whatsoever. So this is so this chapter is all about identifying the scam in the name of Islam, of course. And we're going to be examining this from the monotheist tradition of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as we understand today.
I think, Brother Igor, your connection is a bit off.
Just a little bit back and forth, yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully that should be better.
Yep.
And the idea is, I'm not going to cover, outside of the Abrahamic religions, because I feel these ones are the ones with the most impact on the world at the time. And I'm hopefully, as speculative as this presentation, this idea sounds, it might get people to start thinking more about, why do we have all of these stories and these prophecies ready for us in these three religions? And you're going to see how they interact with each other when you put them together in a bad way. So,
Bismillah, I'm looking forward to it.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Let's look at the next slide. So the very next slide has kind of an overview of this. So I will say that this few slides, I'm not putting any Quran verses there. It'll get very Quran heavy, obviously, when we talk about what is the truth about these designations of Jew, Christian, and Muslim, and Messiah, and Isa, and Mahdi, and all of this stuff. Because to unravel that, we need to understand, what are they telling us about this end of the world, end times, Armageddon, apocalypse, all this stuff. So we're going to be talking about what they tell us, how do they fit together, and what does this point to, before we understand what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us in the Quran about these, so-called Jews, Christians, and Muslims, right?
Yeah. On that note, if I could just say one small thing, which is, as I am wrapping up this book, because there was just, as you were aware, when we spoke on the hour, I showed at the end of the last discussion a few of the verses that I still had to elaborate upon. And in doing so, I knew it then, but I understand it better now. And I think people will be familiar with the verse in the Quran. So there is just one reference in the Quran in which Allah does make it clear that they seek to hasten the hour.
Exactly.
So there are these people who, even though they doubt the hour, they question the hour, they don't have iman, the kafirs, the people who are blaspheming against Allah, basically, doing the worst of things. It is very clear. There is a verse in which Allah says that rather they seek to hasten the hour. We are in awe, and or I can't remember exactly what the word is, but we are in awe of the hour, and we are cautious about it, and we have iman in it. But they have doubts. They think it's just an assumption from people. These are the words in the Quran, but definitely they seek to hasten it. And that slide that you've got there, that image you got there, just reminded me of that. Yep.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's interesting that you said that Allah doesn't hasten, He doesn't quicken, and yet eschatology seems like it sounds like they're trying to escalate the situation, right? So they're trying to escalate it so that it gets to the Day of Judgment, but it won't work. It's just
it's not in their hands, right?
It's not in their hands, exactly.
I think that's a beautiful point you brought up there, Brother Weiss, that basically they don't believe in it, yet they want to hasten it. Isn't that going to be bad for them?
That's the strange thing. Yeah.
I think that's the idea. It's I think we discussed this on the last one. Is basically they're trying to kind of trap people in something that is not going to look good for them in the afterlife, and maybe this is what this is all about: is getting people off guard to follow and submit and die for something that is not part of Allah's religion.
But there is that verse that they want us to compromise. They will befriend us. They will befriend us only when we compromise. That's what they want from all of us. They don't even want us to disbelieve necessarily. They just want us to compromise our beliefs. They want us to. That's the only way they'll befriend us. So that's why even if we are on one end of the scale, but if we're falling for these traps, it is compromising. We are compromising. Yeah.
So on the very next slide, I just wanted to highlight the actual points of why I made this presentation. Number one, we want to look at the similarities between these world religions and their prophecies, because I feel it's important to compare notes when we're talking about, basically the same event at the end of the world. Apparently, all religions point to that. Apparently, we also want to find out, what does the Quran actually say about these different religions? Are they even different religions? Are they even the same ones we're used to today? We want to look at the dogma regarding these savior figures. We're told they're going to come back or return, as some people would say. And especially in our time, because all the signs are there, there's going to be a future war. Hopefully that's not the case, but it's better to be prepared and have the foresight than after the fact. And if we could rationalize what are the most likely scenarios or consequences that they're going to use to do kind of a kill two birds with one stone in this event by swindling most of humanity, it's very important to discuss this. Even if we're wrong, I would hope I'm wrong, but the idea is, has anyone really looked into it in this way and thought to themselves, hey, if I just take myself outside of this traditional Islamic, Jewish, Christian context and just look at it from above, what is this pointing towards? Is this a good thing? So in this way, we can help spread awareness. And this is tactical. This is strategic. This is what they do against mankind every day. They don't get a weekend or holiday. They don't sleep, these people. And they've had years and decades and perhaps hundreds of years to have this plan come to fruition. So we want to hopefully ruin this element of surprise, because it's so obvious now. What they are encouraging most of humanity that cares about human life and humanitarianism and all this, is that they're trying to herd people either on one or two sides, which you can imagine they would control, because why not? And so this bitter truth is behind this premise that they're selling us of modern religions. And you're going to see how, if we do have this World War III, which is very scary to talk about, but if we were alive in the last two wars, we probably wouldn't have a problem speaking about it, just because we're not in the context of what that's like. So
Mhm.
we prefer not. We would prefer to keep our, comfortable lives, right? But
Mhm.
the reality on the ground is people have, in a way, have already been touched by the birth pangs of this war already.
Mhm.
And I think, it would be doing a service to prevent this spread, if possible, to our front of the war as well. If you go to the next slide, this is talking about why even look at eschatology, especially when it comes to the quote unquote Abrahamic religions.
Mhm.
Now, it's a funny thing that we have this concept of Abrahamic religions because, as far as I can read, there's only one religion that Ibrahim has in the Quran. So I'm not sure how they had rationalized religions stemming from this one person. But that's kind of a clue that he has nothing to do with these religions anyway.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the reason why I think this is important is they represent the most accessible format in the entire world for accepting belief in one all-powerful God. So not atheism, not polytheism, the most natural choice for the human fitrah that everyone is seeking.
Mhm. Mhm.
This is why it's important, because these religions have the most followers officially. And it makes
Mhm.
sense because
Yep.
this is exactly the natural human inclination.
Mm.
So if we can see eschatology representing the ultimate goal of every organized belief system, and that encompasses the most important aspects of why that faith exists, meaning either you're saved or you're damned to hell, right? So there's like a clear goal at the end of it.
Mm.
Then we can understand what this idea of people of the book and their prescribed final purposes will shed light on what might be in store for the future generations. Because obviously, we have children in this world, and we want to see them grow up in a world where things don't get worse for them, as it got worse in our time. And if we have some way of passing down that knowledge, at the very least, that's going to be something important, because
Yep.
it seems like knowledge is lost every generation.
Mm. Mm.
So within these religious frames, I'm going to go one by one and just tell you what I've concluded about the summary of each of these faiths, what they say happens at the end of the world. And yes, of course, there's going to be contradictions because these are not condoned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's going to be contradictions when you go online and you see, wait a second, the Mahdi comes first, the Dajjal comes second. That's fine. I'm just taking the kernels of truth, putting it on there in a format, and then letting the chips fall where they may, as they say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can add just a little bit to that again, which is that in that video which I did proving that Maryam alayhi salam is indeed the actual sister of Harun alayhi salam, as the verse says in the Quran. In that recording that I did, I did include that these three religions are hard to prove within the Quran. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You cannot find that Musa alayhi salam is mentioned with the Torah at all. He's not mentioned with the Torah. So that's like there's many signs that there is a problem with these religions. You can find that Isa alayhi salam is heavily mentioned with both Torah and Injil, but Musa alayhi salam is never mentioned with the Torah. And yeah, again, we're not going to go into that here, but I just thought I'd remind people that there's plenty of evidence in the Quran that these three religions are questionable, which
Absolutely.
includes, what a Muslim is, what Islam is in the Quran, and following the deen and millet of Ibrahim alayhi salam.
Absolutely.
So just one last thing before you do move on. My question would be: does anyone know about this word religion? Because I understand what deen is. I think we understand better now what deen is and what millet is, but I don't know about this word religion. Is it something to do with picking a legion? Is it something to do with
Perhaps,
picking, your favorite legion, like I don't know, Manchester United or Liverpool, or I don't know, the
sports
Chicago
team.
Bulls, sports team. Is that what this is? Okay, which legion have you allied yourself with? Is that what this word is? I don't know. I just have a question.
I think it's important at this stage to not, totally dismiss any possible listeners. to use words they're familiar with, only in the sense of, okay, when I say religion, obviously you know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about something totally different. The same idea, the same approach to connection with God, right? Whatever you think that is. But you're very true in that in the Quran, the definitions don't match what we see in the world. And when you're talking about Din al-Islam or Milat Ibrahim Hanifan Musliman, that this presentation is going to touch on later, inshallah, that is very different than what we've been told. We're not even told. I mean, traditionally we would say the Prophet Muhammad, salam, he came with, the Deen al-Islam, but this is not the case in the Quran. And I think that this will hopefully do a service.
He says, I am not an innovation amongst the messengers.
Exactly.
I'm not nothing new. I've come to reiterate or remind or bring.
Absolutely.
All of the same. Yeah.
Now, I will put a disclaimer. I feel it's appropriate at this stage. This can be very confronting if you're used your entire life, or even you're recently to believe exactly as the nominal mainstream Islamic discourse or Jewish or Christian ideas about the end or eschatology. It'll be very confronting for you to accept or understand that perhaps maybe that's not the truth. Maybe that's not the reality. But this is just for people that want to get deeper insight. No, I'm not intending to conclude that people following these religions today are by any means culpable. Not in the sense I was in the same position many times. But I'm a little bit wiser than in the past. And I think that we cannot be foolish, because Shaitan's game is to put people in delusion, right? And we're going to touch upon that, inshallah. That, if you're not prepared to admit that you're wrong, may God be with you, may Allah be with you, that you're not deluded in the end. Because I feel that this Quran came at this time for a very specific reason. We don't have any prophets today like in the past. We don't have the Prophet Muhammad to call him up and ask him, can you pass a fatwa? Is this true?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
We don't. So what we have left is this Quran, and we all agree, no matter what sect of Islam you are in, all agree this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's just stick to that. Absolutely. And then everything else, we can have a discussion, but this is where we're grounded in. And then we'll compare we've done so many videos on this already. What do we see at the end of the day? What stands and is not blown away with the wind, and so this is where we start, and obviously I didn't put any Quran verses here for a reason, because I'm trying to show that you don't really need the Quran to show that this doesn't make any sense. In a way, you can use these different eschatological understandings against each other. It's almost like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if they had gods in heaven, they would destroy each other. There's only one truth, one God, one message. And if there's any discrepancy, you have to discern what the truth is. And there's a lot of discrepancies.
Just to go back to what our brother always said about religion, this is what it means in Latin, because obviously English comes from Latin. It means to tie down or to bind together. So,
there you go.
So that's what this is, right? It's tying all the religions together through the hadith.
Organized system,
As an organized system, So they've organized these systems to tie people down, so that they're not free, right? Because what is the millat of Ibrahim? It's a contract. So a contract is something you can either accept or not accept. So you're free to choose.
That's right. That's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah.
So you're free to do, just like Allah says, Allah, that Islam isn't something that you can force upon people. So people are free to choose, and yet this word religion is something that ties you down where you can't choose.
Right.
And I feel like
Right.
honestly, like, this is a perfect word for it, because when you look at Islam and we look at Muslims, you know, we're not moving anywhere forward.
No,
We're
no.
literally tied down to the
Yeah,
same
literally.
spot, same exact spot for the last 100 years. So
Yeah.
it's very telling in the word.
Very good point,
on
honestly.
an individual level as well. I mean, we can talk about the collective scale, but even on an individual level, this is why I've delved into this, because it's affected me in my personal life as well, holding me
Definitely.
back. So I'm sure other people do relate as well, and see other family members within their own families that see the same problem. This basically, yeah. Again, sorry, I don't want to detract, but there is definitely, because you mentioned this binding down or tying down. There is an element. It's a mental
Mental, yeah.
disease of mental disease of tying people's minds down to things that aren't real. Yeah, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, as much as I want to distance myself from the Bible, for the afterlife, it has a very good point in there, which is the truth will set you free. I really like the
Yeah,
idea of that. I think that's
yeah,
very
yeah,
good words to live by. And
yeah. I think
there are
there's some
aspects.
great things that are said in the hadith as well. No denying that.
Yeah,
I think there's some
yeah.
great things that are said in
There's
there.
even a hadith that I use in this presentation to underscore the
Mm,
point that maybe we've had
mm,
it wrong, even though it's
yeah.
been taught a certain way. I think
Mm,
that actually you can use these extra Quranic sources to
mm,
prove the point of the Quran even more. And that's why it's
yep.
so interesting that
Mm,
Allah allowed all of this to happen in this time, you know.
mm.
Yeah, so let's
Yeah, please do. Yep.
start with Judaism first, because they tell us this is the oldest one, right? So I just kind of put them in order. So interestingly enough, Christianity has a Messiah and an Antichrist, and Islam has a Messiah and an Antichrist. But I'm not sure if people know that Judaism has two recognized Messiahs. And obviously, these figures exist as contemporaries in the end times. So one is from the line of Yusuf, alayhi salam, and then the other is from the line of Dawood, alayhi salam. So when in Hebrew, it's interesting you brought up Miriam being the sister of Harun, because actually in Hebrew, not in the Quranic Arabic, but in Hebrew, they would use this term son of David or son of Joseph as like a kind of lineage. But, obviously we understand this to not be the case in the Quran. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because when you study these two messianic individuals in Judaism, it's going to be very interesting that they're actually human beings with different life paths existing at the same time. And once we compare them to the figures in Islamic and Christian eschatology, we're going to think, wait a second, aren't these the same people? Just different names, different titles.
Yep.
So Messiah ben Joseph is officially a military commander, and he is sent for the Jews, Beni Israel, to fight the enemies of Israel, who are indicated as Edom, or the people of Esau. And every rabbi will tell you that this equates to Europe, Europeans, people of Rome, the West. These are the Edomites spiritually today. And this Messiah ben Joseph, they say, will be killed in this great war or battle with Gog and Magog. This is from the Talmud, apparently. And simultaneously, you have this other Redeemer called Messiah ben David, who is actually a king. And this is why the Jews are always waiting for a king or a high priest. They've rejected Isa, alayhi salam. And so obviously that makes a problem. They have to identify this king that's coming for the Jewish people to bring them salvation. We'll get to the, what Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in their modern renditions are today, what they actually are in the Quran later on. But right now, I'm just highlighting the end times prophecies. This Messiah ben David is going to be the world ruler, apparently, of this messianic age. And the Jewish hereafter is a little bit murky compared to the other two Abrahamic quote unquote religions, because it's not really it's just called the world to come. That's what he's going to rule, this Messiah ben David. But Messiah ben Joseph, he's thought to be kind of like the forerunner for this. So he's going to prepare this third temple, and it's going to be all prepared. They talk about this all the time, even in global politics as well, for this Messiah ben David to be established. Some rabbis even believe that the Messiah ben Joseph, who's martyred or killed, will actually be resurrected by this Messiah ben David as one of these miracles from God. And so he'll rebuild the third temple, defeat the enemies of Israel, and then bring world peace. We've heard this so many times before. This is kind of one of the talking points of Zionism today. But I just wanted to start with this one. So you see the difference between these two characters, these two messiahs. And officially, there's no antichrist in Judaism. Just kind of strange. And I thought back when I was more inclined towards Sunni Islam, that they would be one of the people that accept the Antichrist, the Dajjal, because they don't even have a concept of it. So how would they be able to recognize who the Dajjal is? But now it seems that these terms are there for a reason, to obviously conflate not just Jews, but Muslims and Christians as well, as we're going to see. So I don't know if you have any questions about that, but I think it'll probably be answered on the next two slides.
Yeah, no, I'll just say that I'm just picturing Mahdi as you're speaking. But yeah,
you'll see why it's so interesting. When you talk about Christian eschatology, right, in the next slide. So in Christianity, there's a bit of a debate if there's a rapture or not. But the basic idea of the rapture is there's a resurrection of the dead in Christ. So again, we have people rising from the graves in the end of days. This is not the hour officially. This is way before the hour. Now, Christianity is a little bit more complicated. There's a lot more going on, very specific. Obviously, they made it that way, right?
Yep.
So we have a clear antichrist in Christianity. This is new. This Judaism does not have.
I've seen Christians draw out proper timeline maps of exactly what is going to happen. I've seen several of these from several people. Yeah.
They're obsessed with it. And it makes sense why. So we have a clear antichrist or false messiah. That's what that word eventually means, imitator messiah, which tells you a lot. That tells you that Dajjal in Christianity is a type of a messiah. In actuality, just an imitator, right? And obviously, contrast with Judaism, Christianity obviously believes that the Messiah can be none other than Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Okay, astaghfirullah. So the Antichrist rises to power. So notice he comes first. Okay, or it could be even simultaneous, but it just makes a point to highlight his domain increasing in these end times. He conquers the world. He promises peace. He's even aided by a quote-unquote false prophet, and he's recognized by a false religious system. And this is according to Christianity and the Bible. What do you think that false system is and what that false prophet is in Christianity? Take a wild guess.
Islam and Prophet Muhammad.
Well, you'd be correct, because this is the normal Christian understanding of these prophecies. No debate. The tribulation period.
I'm glad you're doing this, because now this is filling in gaps for me, because listening to Muhammad from God and Baba Shuaib debating with David Wood, and I can't remember the other guy's name.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I didn't watch it properly, but I was just being reminded of, I watch out for what is it that they emphasize. And I could see that the emphasis was that your prophet is the false prophet, that's what it was. So now that you bring this up, now this makes sense to me now.
Yep. And
but I think, but what's the underlying emotion they're trying to play with? It's hatred. Hatred for one another, right? This is what
fighting one another.
For sure.
Fighting one another, so we don't unite. Your prophet's false. No, you say the Son of God, and it's just it's like two kids fighting, right? Like
when actually it's got nothing to do with prophets. I mean, we're not going to get into here about the word prophet, but it's got nothing to do with the messengers of the Creator. It's got nothing to do with them.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So you're right. It is in sowing the seeds of hatred and division. And clearly, if this was revealed by the Creator and Lord of the worlds and the heavens and the earth, this would not move people away from Him. It would move Him towards unity, towards the original Ummah that was mankind in the beginning. I feel that this is going to return in some fashion, but clearly our world is not like that, and this is why. So, who do you think is responsible for putting this wedge that makes humans enemies against each other? Knowing, of course, full well, we have the same ancestors, we have the same God, we have the same eventual meeting with Him. Well, obviously, Shaitan. Shaitan is the clearest enemy. He's a clear enemy to mankind.
Yeah.
And this cannot be overstated enough in the Quran, and just by sheer logic. So there's a tribulation period that lasts 7 years, and it begins precisely when this Antichrist gains power in the world. So it becomes basically a force to be reckoned with, like a world leader. So it shows that he's a military commander, because how do you gain power in the world without a military force? You can't. You have to dominate, conquer, win battles, be a strategist, decisive, exactly as they portray. You're going to see this Messiah ben Yosef. And it's interesting that the Gog and Magog war is also referenced in Christianity in this period, the first half. There's 7 years and there's another 7 years. And guess what? The Messiah, Jesus Christ, is fighting this Antichrist that gains power in this war. And guess what? This Antichrist is allied with the Middle East, Africa, and a northern army. And he actually attacks Israel, because obviously Israel and Christianity is very special. They believe the church is Israel. But he's defeated by God's intervention. Isn't this interesting? Isn't this how we see the world set up today? You're going to see it's more evidence to this effect.
The hadith comes to mind. So you're pointing out the Great War, or what they call in the Christian eschatology the tribulation period, which is 7 years. And I used to try to reconcile everything, thinking that it's all got truth. And I used to align it with the hadith about the Great War lasting for obviously one narration was saying 7 months, another one was saying 7 years. But maybe so that's what comes to mind.
It could very well be true, because we have this idea that there is a story of Prophet Yusuf, Nabi Yusuf in the Quran, that he says there's 7 good years, and then there's 7 hard years, and then there's
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, like there's got to be something to with Yusuf alayhi salam in the 7 years.
Yeah,
so
and there is.
You're right. Yeah,
there is. This is like archetype, and I think it's a kind of off topic, but once we kind of show this not to be the case, I hope, inshallah, by the end, somewhere in this presentation, to show you what does the Quran say to expect, because it seems like all of these hadith, whether from the Bible or from Islamic sources, seem to be plagiarizing or taking ideas from the Quran to give them more weight in your fitrah. So halfway through this tribulation, the Antichrist, he scatters the Jews. Many turn to Christ as Lord. Obviously, this doesn't make any sense to us. And all those who believe in Christ are persecuted. So in every single eschatological account, clearly the people of that religion are the ones that are saved. They're the good people. Everyone else is bad. It's very black and white. And it doesn't make any sense, because clearly we know in the Quran there are hypocrites. So there's no way to discern that, Jesus makes his second coming. So you can see where this idea comes from, right? And he defeats the armies of the Antichrist. He saves Jerusalem. First picture I had in this presentation had Jerusalem marked on there, right? And he kills the Antichrist. So the Antichrist actually dies in Christian eschatology. What's very strange is the hour doesn't come right away. Jesus rules this millennium kingdom for 1,000 years. And then Satan is loosed and then destroyed in a quick war again. And then the sinners enter hell. New Jerusalem comes from the heavens, and the creation is renewed. Very strange. You have the idea that all this happens, you enter peace, but it's not eternal peace. It's actually temporary. Which tells me that if this is going to happen in the future, this period likely maybe even already happened. If Isa alayhi salam was alive in his time and they thought he was dead, crucified or killed, perhaps he may have established something similar to this concept of a millennium kingdom in the past. And maybe we're living in this time where shaitan is loosed, according to Christianity. And some Christians have brought this idea forward that study Tartaria and all this stuff, that history is a lie. 1,000 years always keeps coming up.
Yep.
And if that's true, then that would immediately nullify all of these prophecies of Isa returning, of the false Messiah, all of this stuff is now off the table. Like we said in the last idea of Constantinople being conquered, which we're going to discuss in the next slide. What if this already happened and we're just being duped to think it's the future? That's very possible. There's no proof either way, right?
The next slide, did you say? The next slide?
Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, we can go to that. So this is the big one, right? This is what everyone is ready for, right? What does Islam say? So obviously there's some discrepancy between Shia and Sunni Islam. But I'm gonna focus on Sunni Islam only because this is the majority idea, and many of the Shia beliefs they're not in conflict with the Sunni idea, other than his descent or something like that. Maybe even his idea of him being alive for so long, but it's kind of irrelevant to this presentation anyway. So the Mahdi is thought to appear before the Dajjal and before Isa Masih. So in Islam, we have 3 people now. Now, one is the Mahdi, one is the Dajjal, the Antichrist, and one is Isa al-Masih, the Messiah. So interestingly enough, now there's three parties involved. There's 2 in Christianity, 2 in Judaism. And the Dajjal, the Dabbat al-Ard, and Ya'juj and Ma'juj, or Gog and Magog, are thought to be 3 of these major signs before the hour at the end of time. And we've talked about this, right? The signs before the hour and what that means. People can watch that video. Just there's no indication of this being a phenomenon in the Quran. Look at this. I found this interesting.
Just to quickly remind people in case they don't know or they don't.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So instead of Dajjal in the Quran, we have Shaitan, who is known by the deceiver as the deceiver, which is Al-Ghurur. And when it comes to Dabbatul Ard in the Quran, I haven't gone into it deeply, but as far as I remember, that is speaking of something testifying on Yawmul Qiyamah. I think Dabbatul Ard, the creature that is testifying on Yawmul Qiyamah at the end. I can't. And and I think, I don't know if you've got the mentioning here of the sun rising from the west.
This one I didn't put, and the reason why is because I'm focusing more on the similarities between the religions.
The only reason why I bring it up is because the hadith mentions them together. So I just wanted people to know that all three of what they mention in the hadith contradicts what is in the Quran. Dabbatul Ard, sun rising from the west, and Dajjal. Not only is it not found, but there are contradictory information in the Quran. Allah says that the sun continues its circuit constantly, until the end, until Yawmul Qiyamah.
There you go.
So,
and just one more. Obviously, we used to follow Sheikh Imran Hussain and his interpretation of what the Jasad is. The Jasad is not the Jasad is exactly what it intends to be, which is Shaitan, just the devil. Right?
Yeah, I haven't gone into that.
That's interesting, because Bani Israel in the Quran worship a Jasad, or they take this Jasad called the golden calf.
Golden calf,
So I just want to touch on how does Islam, in mainstream Islam, how do they describe the Dajjal? Like you mentioned, the Dajjal is not in the Quran. So we only have hadith to validate the existence of what this is. And interestingly enough, the Dajjal will claim to be divine. He will perform miracles such as raising the dead. and he will have a ruddy complexion with curly hair. You can find this information easily. He will also have one eye, and most who follow him will be Jews. Okay, here's an interesting idea. So let me find this verse, Matthew 6:22.
This one eye of the Antichrist that is in Islamic eschatology, you're referencing the book of Matthew.
Yes. Do you know why? Because it's not in the Quran. And so I had to look in other sources. And funny enough.
No, I'm happy that you are, but I'm surprised that there is the mentioning of the Antichrist being one-eyed in the book of Matthew. Okay, that's very interesting.
So strangely, he's not called the Antichrist in the book of Matthew. He's called Jesus Christ.
I understand.
So Jesus Christ's words, allegedly, is in the book of Matthew, is the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But guess what? If you go to the KJV version, which I'm going to do right now, it doesn't say healthy. It says single. If that eye, therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. If thine eye, not eyes, eye, be evil, the whole body shall be full of darkness. So there's a whole bunch of different interpretations of what that means. The Bible is very cryptic for that reason. But think about it. One eye, he will raise the dead, Islam, Dajjal. He will claim to be divine, perform miracles. You see where this is going, right?
Yes, yeah.
And these hadith say that most of the people who follow him will be Jews. I mean, if we go to the Quran, this one I can actually show you. Surah An-Nisa, verse 155. Let me just find it here. And let's say to 161. Let me just find it here, because basically you gotta look at who are the people that claim Jesus is crucified.
Did you say 155 or 155?
155 to 161. So it says, and for their breaking of the covenant and their disbelief in the signs of Allah and their killing of the prophets without right, they're saying our hearts are wrapped. This is just to show you who, excuse me, Allah is identifying. The people whose hearts are wrapped, this everybody will agree with, are the Jews. And they say against Miriam a great slander. And for their saying, indeed we have killed the Messiah, Jesus the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. They did not kill him, nor did they crucify him. And it continues on. Christians today unequivocally believe Jesus is crucified. The hadith identifies these people as Jews. The Quran identifies these people as the ones that slander Mary, the ones that believe they killed him, that claim that he's crucified. Isn't it interesting?
Should we still say Jews or Yahud, or Jews for the sake of understanding what your presentation
the idea is we have these religions now, whether we like it or not. And before we can even get to defining them, we have to show how these definitions don't match with the book we're given. Now, Masih ad-Dajjal, interesting idea, because he's not just called Dajjal, Masih ad-Dajjal, Messiah of Dajjal. Wait a second, I thought there's Dajjal and there's Messiah. Well, it looks like it's actually Messiah of Dajjal. In the Quran, we only have an instance of Masih, that word being Al-Masih, one and only one.
One and only one.
But so in the Quran, there's no other possible person it can be. But in Hadith, we have Al-Masih, Isa, we have Masih ad-Dajjal. You know what I mean? There's a discrepancy there. So you can see how people can be fooled, right? And let's be honest, right? If we're to believe Dajjal, he's the biggest deceiver ever. He's just the biggest trickster that ever walked the earth. How are we going to be fooled by him if all this is correct? right?
Yeah.
Think about it. You know what he looks like. You know that he's going to have kefir on his head. You know he'll have one eye. He will come from Persia. He will do all these things. He will have a broken leg or something like this. Well, isn't that exactly what he would want you to believe? A lie? We'll discuss that, but it says that he's likely to emerge from the east, Persia. And actually, there are many Dajjals in authentic hadith, and he'll be falsely claimed as Messiah. That's key. People will think he's the Messiah somewhere in the world. The deceiver is associated with the ultimate lie against Allah, which is God has a son. This is also an idea in the Quran you can derive. What it's pointing to is that the antichrist in Islamic eschatology is actually the savior in Christian eschatology. This is very easy to see, and there's more evidence on this slide. Why is this the case? Because these ideologies have been crafted very carefully, I believe, to destroy each other. Now, the Mahdi, interestingly enough, will have an army of supporters.
Clash of civilizations, right? Clash of civilizations.
You can see it's already in motion. Interestingly enough, the Mahdi will also have supporters from Persia, the exact same place the Masih Dajjal is coming from. So my question is, did they put the story of Dajjal somewhat in the Mahdi, somewhat in the Jesus Christ of Christianity? Is it all just a big theater for us? And it seems like Imam Mahdi, who are his opponents? His opponents are Rome. Isn't that the Vatican, the Christian church, the West, Rome? Isn't that who the Messiah ben Joseph fights? Edom, Rome? And it's believed, I tried to find this, it's very hard to find this, but it's believed that he will be martyred, and that he will die of natural causes after the caliphate is reestablished. So even in Islam, there's a kingdom that's established after the end of this war, just like a millennium kingdom in Christianity. But it's temporary. That's the point. And I would speak with people that are like Shia or Sunni Muslims. They tell me, "Oh, don't worry, brother. It's all good. It looks bad, but the Mahdi's coming. He's going to establish peace and justice throughout the world." Okay, one problem.
As Dr. Mazaid said in one of his latest discussions, Mahdi's coming to kick butt.
Sure. And maybe in some respect, I agree with him, but not in this story. This story clearly has holes in it. But if it's a temporary peace, why in the world does that matter to me? I'm concerned with the day of judgment. I'm concerned with the eternity. If it's just going to end up going to hell again, there's a big earthquake and Gog and Magog. I'll show you here. What's the point? We've had temporary peace in the past.
Just to remind people, all of this is to preserve our iman, because that's what it is at the end of the day. When these things come out to not be true or be false or be whatever, it's people's imans at stake. So and that's what it is. During these, clearly we're in times of trial and tribulation,
We are in these times.
Could you imagine like these people who have put their faith in the hadith of Dajjal and all of this, and none of it comes true, or it's been made to know that this was all fake? Like what would happen to their iman? What would happen to their... exactly.
Brother Imran, I've actually put a specific slide for this, a couple of them, just because I know this is so confronting. I'm kind of cautious with my words here, but knowing that this is so confronting to Muslims and indeed, let alone Christians and Jews. But the idea is, okay, wouldn't you want to know in advance? Wouldn't you want to? I'm not casting doubt in God. Believe in Allah. Believe in the last day. Believe in the messenger. Believe what he revealed. Allah revealed via him. I'm not saying any of that. This is not an atheistic argument. This is an argument for monotheism. It's like you said, Brother Awais, one of your voice notes. it seems like our test in this life is to take away things, beliefs we have, preconceived notions we have out of us.
Detox.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Detox. So what I'm going to suggest here, if you want to hang me out to dry, whoever is listening, be my guest. But don't shoot the messenger. Because, listen, this will be such a fitna in the world. If this is the case, and I've been studying this for some time now, every day I'm thinking, oh my God, I have to make this recording.
Yes,
because it's 2023. We have no idea what's around the corner. Any day, something can happen. And we have to be prepared for that. You could be your wife, your brother, your husband, your father, your mother, your son, your daughter, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle, that will go out and risk their life in prophecies like this and die upon this.
They're going to, what do they say? They're going to crawl on even ice?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. There's something going on. And look at the end of this. What's the Mahdi's name in hadith? It's the same name as the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his name. Same exact thing. The army of Dajjal is described quite bluntly as having small eyes and flattened faces. I mean, that's kind of unfortunate if you're a Muslim from that part of the world, because
exactly. Tell me about it.
Very has some connotations there. I don't want to get into.
Racist. This is basically
very racist. I was going to say that. Very racist, it seems.
Yeah, Islam is for mankind. But
who's there planting seeds of racism in history?
Exactly.
It's the same people that created nationalism.
Absolutely. And guess what? We understand this to be an Eastern phenomenon. So again, the army of Dajjal is associated with the East, just like the Mahdi has an army from the East. Whether it's Khorasan or whether it's it's the same place, or Isfahan, Persia. The Mahdi and his army will conquer Jerusalem and conquer Constantinople. Funny enough, even if it's the same place. After fighting a party of the Romans and making an uneasy truce with another party of Romans. This is how I worded it, based on how it's not very clear how it's presented, but this is what it's saying. This is where Sheikh Umar Hussein comes in, because he will tell you that, oh no, these are not the bad Romans. These are the good Romans. Yes, they're Christians, but they're the good ones. Do you remember when I told you that Christianity believes that the Antichrist will make an alliance with a northern army?
Yeah.
We know that he's coming from the East. He's allied with the Middle East, Africa, and the northern army. Every single Christian will tell you this army is Russia. And it just so happens to be Russia is called Rome as well. Moscow is called Third Rome. We'll get into this.
Well,
so
they can't make their mind up. I hear some of them saying that Russia is Magog. I don't know.
Oh yeah. They all say Magog, but in in even Islamic eschatology, they'll take Third Rome. Moscow after the fall of Constantinople, which is interesting because that would mean it already happened, right? But they'll tell you, this is where the church, the spiritual Rome, shifted to Moscow. So Isa bin Maryam, he descends from the clouds in Syria. Funny enough. And he's carried by two angels on either side. And the Mahdi will lead Fajr prayer. And Isa will be in the front line, praying with the Mahdi. There's even a hadith from Sunan ibn Majah. It says, there is no Mahdi except Isa ibn Maryam.
Very interesting.
What the heck does this mean? Why are there so many discrepancies in hadith?
Yeah.
Well,
confusion, because that's the nature of this text that people are
this is a psychological warfare.
Upon. Yeah.
Psychological nonlinear warfare.
I mentioned I used one of the hadith in one of the recent videos where it says, if you are confused about the Dajjal, know such and such. And I thought, I am confused. All of this is confusing.
Well, that's the idea. I mean, somebody could, comment back and say, well, you just don't understand the hadith. It means this and this and this and this. Fine. I don't have a problem with that.
The premise is now people have to shut down their thinking. That's it. You just have to not think. You have to take it because, that's what it is. It's even though Allah says again and again in the Quran, think, reflect, reason. They're telling you, no, don't. You have to take
Don't
risks.
don't
Stop your thing. Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, don't call me a kafir when I'm calling to Allah in the last day and the messenger and all the prophets and all the books,
Yeah.
because I used to believe in this. And stunningly, it was so easy to let go of this at a certain point, because you see the parallels with the other religions that you're told are false anyway. Because it says right here, Isa Masih is the one credited with killing the Dajjal. He breaks the cross, he slaughters the swine, and very strangely, he somehow is powerless to stop Gog and Magog, which swarm the world. And so he leads the believers apparently to Mount Sinai, as that's where they tell us Mount Tur is. And so Gog and Magog, they're somehow destroyed by some rain where worms are sent on their necks. And a beast arises from the earth, and he marks this person as a kafir and this person as a believer. So at the end of the day, you know who's a kafir and believer at the very end. This is very
So there's no
incoherent.
judgment. There's no judgment on Judgment Day. There's judgment beforehand. This beast will do the judging. You are a believer. You are a disbeliever.
Well, that's the connotation, and you know, if the Masih comes at the very end to kill the Dajjal in Syria or in Israel or Palestine, what is this? I mean, how many lives have been lost and destroyed and killed? How much of the earth has been just completely ravaged for something that could have happened in the beginning? I mean, especially when the Mahdi came before. So there's no test of faith. You know, people would have always followed the Mahdi to death. It's very strange that we have stories in hadith. I mean, just the idea of Isa returning. Isa is in the flesh, coming down, as if he's like God's wrath. Just exactly as the Bible says, with two angels. And I think you probably have this idea in your book, where we have this idea in Islam. It comes down from the heavens in the sky. And there's so many passages in the New Testament that speak the Son of Man coming down in the glory from the sky, from the clouds with the angels. Is it just a coincidence?
No.
I mean, especially when you consider that officially the New Testament came before the Quran. I don't believe this, but let's say if it's true, couldn't it just be a copy then? Couldn't it just be plagiarized in the hadith? A lot of things, the idea of intercession, the idea, so many things like this. We even are told in hadith that every person has sin on them except the mother of Isa and Isa. Who would it benefit to say this? You know, you bring this to a Christian. Oh, great. Why don't you become Christian then? So, you know, the fundamentalists in all of these religions, they are going to have a field day with this. They're going to be lining up ready to carry out this, as you call it, soothsaying, oracle prophecy. And let's say if some of these events already happened.
As Allah puts it, as Allah puts it,
That's how, exactly. We're not making anything new. We're just showing you that, let's say if this is wrong, can you point me to what the religion of God is? What we should be doing? No. Clearly, there are many issues.
Why, look, I mean, the real proof of everything that we're speaking of is everyone is one foot in, 1 foot out. Because everyone is 1 foot in, 1 foot out. That's what I've noticed. Everyone wants to, they speak about it, they believe, they say they believe, but when it actually comes down to the actual action, everyone is lacking because they're not actually, deep down subconsciously, they're not 100% convinced about any of this. And that's what it is. When I think back at many people that I've met, there is this hesitancy to go all the way. They say, yes, I believe all of this, but there's a hesitancy to go into all of this all the way. This is the proof in the pudding that, you know, people will they don't want to go into this all the way, both intellectually as well as in the world, in action.
Look, we can.
It sounds like a movie, doesn't it? It sounds like Lord of the Rings replaying itself. And you know, one thing that really, like, after you kind of go through this and then you think, you know, this can't be real, this can't be true, it doesn't actually make sense, because why would why would Isa alayhi salam return? Or sorry, I should say this. So if the greatest lie on earth is that they claim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a son, astaghfirullah. So the people, so when Allah says that when they said that about Isa, that the heavens were about to erupt. So if they started the greatest lie, why would Isa come back thousands of years later to take revenge? Why wouldn't he just go back to the people who started it, who initiated, who's attached to the greatest lie? Why would he come back later? So to me, it seems like it's history repeating itself. It's because the only person that in history in Islam that claimed to be God was Fir'aun.
Yes.
So I feel like this is they're just repeating history.
Yeah. And why would we lie? Why would we have an alliance? That with people that affirm this, called Rum. If our Prophet Isa alayhi salam is coming back to destroy the cross anyway.
Exactly.
This is just makes it so strange, right? Like, yeah, I don't know, Brother Fan, I can see your screen. I don't know, maybe something wrong on mine. But...
It says Imran has started screen sharing.
Okay, never mind. I see it. Okay, we're good. So I think what's going on here is basically, you're right. Why would he come back when we've shown so much Quranic evidence to suggest that, let's say he doesn't come back, and it's very likely, pretty much clear cut that he has a death, and you can say that's going to happen later, but that's reading into the text. The text says the day he dies, and this is mentioned. He mentions this himself, his words in the Quran, while he's a child. So of course that's a future event for him. But clearly it's in the past, because there's no evidence he's still alive. You would have to impart that somehow. So if he's not coming back, this is the crux of these arguments. It's all based upon Isa alayhi salam returning. If he's not coming back,
that's right. This is the biggest one. Yeah.
Wait a second. Yeah. So who's going to kill Dajjal?
And the thing is, I think what they say is, I mean, if you think about it, we're following the year 2023, and if people go back, what is that counting from? 2023. That's counting from, apparently, according to them. I don't know how true this is, but it is counting from the time of Isa alayhi salam, right? According to these people. So therefore, what people say is that, there's signs in the world, and I get where people are coming from, because this is what I believed as well. That there's so much sign in the world that it seems to be Isa alayhi salam central. Essentially, what we believe, what they believe, the fact that they were counting 2023 since then. Apparently, we believe, apparently in the hadith that he's coming back. They believe in the Bible that he's coming back. So all of this. So for that reason, people say, it cannot be it must be true. Just for that reason, that this is what we see in the world. That the world is remembering him and preparing for him to return.
Right. So, it's like you said, the two J's: Jerusalem, Jesus. This is the politics. Everything is revolving around.
That's what I see. If you take away the credibility of these two, Jesus and Jerusalem, and we point out what is in the Quran, which is Darus Salam, which is not Jerusalem, and we have Isa alayhi salam, which is not Jesus, and we now talk about what the Quran says, everything disappears. I think everything disappears.
Exactly.
Everything that's going on from a religious perspective that's happening in Jesus, in Israel, Palestine, it disappears.
Exactly. And so here's the point of contention. You can watch the other videos where it says, provably, there's no clear, you can argue maybe an unclear return of Isa from the Quran, but that's not going to hold much weight on the Day of Judgment. The clear verses, I to put it frankly, I believe the Quran is clear anyway.
But
it is. Anyway, but mankind just likes to play games, right?
Yes,
If you don't play games, there's no return of Isa
that's right.
in the Quran.
Yeah.
There's also no hint of a Mahdi being even a person in the Quran, being even a guided person in the Quran, and let alone coming in our time. So let's say that's off the table. No Mahdi, no Messiah. What are you left with in Islam? Dajjal. You're left with Dajjal. And of
that's
course,
why that's why I could not keep this book as pure cosmology. It was just shouting at me, you just can't avoid this. You have to speak about this. These three actors.
As Brother Imran stated very wisely, the Quran makes the connection for you. The Son of God and the heavens erupting. Cosmology, eschatology. They're related. They're related,
exactly.
And maybe if we had the correct cosmology, do you think we would believe this? We would believe Isa salam is somewhere in the third, fourth, seventh heaven, underwater, and then he's coming down and with the clouds and
get his hair wet.
Yeah, I mean,
he just took a shower before he left,
Yeah, I mean, astaghfirullah, how can they attribute so many lies without evidence? This is what we see in the Bible. Not even in hadith, we have lies about the prophets. Unfortunately, this is what we have to deal with. I see people like David Wood, they're thrilled at the idea of this, even though they neglect all of their problems. But Millet Ibrahim has nothing to do with this. Nothing. So like I said, if you take out the possibility, not even the certainty, the possibility of Mahdi and Isa al-Masih in the end times, let's say we're in now, you're only left with Dajjal. You're only left with whatever shaitan wants to devise, that Allah will allow him to devise. Why? Because if you put yourself in the position, let's say, I don't know, I can't really say that, but let's say from Allah's perspective, he wants to prove, not to himself, obviously. It's hard to really put yourself in that first, but let's say you want definitive proof as a human being who is loyal to him through and through. How are you going to do it? How would you do it? You would go about it to make sure all of the possibilities, because you have full knowledge as Allah, all the possibilities of people leaving are accounted for. So shaitan can do his business, and he even claims this in the Quran. I will lead a portion of your servants away, except the mukhlasin. And that word means the loyal ones, the ones sincere to him. Right?
The sincere ones.
So this is a test for this. I'm convinced that he has set up this dichotomy. I mean, even in hadith, we have this horns of shaitan from the east and the west. What do you think that represents? Is it just flowery poetry, or are they armies? Are they geographical, strategic fitna in motion that we see in the world today? And it's just given many names. Oh, the Democrats and the Republicans and the KGB and the CIA, Israel and the Zionists and the Hamas. I'm so done with all these labels. I want to go to what's the root, what's the origin of it. I'm not satisfied with the explanation Sunni Islam gives, let alone Shia Islam. So I'm thinking, hey, wouldn't it be just a stroke of genius for the jinn world who live thousands of years longer than us to lead most of mankind astray with Allah's permission by just setting up two Dajjals? There's nothing that goes against the Sunni understanding of that, because there's many Dajjals in history, apparently. We already know Christianity.
The illusion of choice, because everyone wants to continue the illusion of choice. Those who are deaf, dumb, blind, they just want to be continuously fooled with the illusion of choice.
It's nothing new. We are the middle nation for a reason, right? We don't pick sides. We're not forced to vote for either or, controlled opposition or mainstream opinion, right? So this is why in the next slide, that's why I originally named this presentation A Tale of Two Dajjals, because this is what I'm confronted with. Christianity says this one in the East is Dajjal. Islam says this one in the West is Dajjal. Judaism seems to have a bipolar understanding of it as well, or doesn't even have Dajjal, right? So obviously there's no salvation there because there's nothing to compare it to. You need evil and good to exist to know the difference, right? So what it seems like is the West, Rome, and the East, Persia. And we've seen in fake history, they have these two world powers throughout the Bible, throughout the Sirah of the Nabi, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And it's no different in our time. Two nexuses of power collaborating, Gog and Magog, Yahud and Nasara, right? Is going to be very common theme in this presentation, that there are two sides and they're not your friend. So the Messiah of the deceiver, Masih ad-Dajjal in the West, you just put them together. I'm surprised I couldn't find anyone to do this to this point. It has to be 2023, I guess. Mashiach bin David returned Jesus Christ of Christianity, aka Son of God, quote unquote, and Masih ad-Dajjal of Islam. They all have the same basic description: raising the dead, performing miracles, divine birth, divine lineage, ruler of the world, brings world peace. Okay. Masih ad-Dajjal of the East, this is Mashiach ben Yosef in Judaism. He's a military commander, and I'm going to go into detail. You're going to see why it's ruled out. There's no possibility that they have made this story very carefully. And it's a shame we haven't looked at it up until now, because we've had apparently 1400 years of Islamic debate. No, I think it's a lot shorter than that. But the idea is we have a right to know what is going on, because we have children in the world. We have
the more I read the Quran, the more it feels like this came a lot more recent. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
This came a lot more recent.
Right. So this Antichrist of Christianity, same description as the Mahdi, same description as Mashiach ben Yosef. So we have two champions of Shaitan. And these champions, I call them that because that's how they will be looked at, but not by both sides. One side will have their side, the other side will have the other. And you can see where this is going. This will be a major, major fitna. And I'll go through the consequences if this ever happens, which I hope not, but it's better to know, right? If you go to the next slide, let's talk about the West first, because it seems like the West is in the news all the time, right? So in Judaism, and this is how I put these people together. We have Messiah ben David. He's thought to resurrect the dead, redeem the Jewish people to come and rule in the Messianic age as a king and high priest, defeating Israel's enemies, rebuilding the temple of Jerusalem, establishing world peace. This is very clear in Judaism. In Christianity, same thing. Jesus Christ, the Messiah, Son of God, guess what? He resurrects the dead, descended from royal line of King David. He's also a high priest as well as a king in Christianity. Many Jews will regard him as Lord or Master, just like Jews will regard Messiah ben David as Master, right? He will defeat the Antichrist and his army, which in Judaism is just Israel's enemies. And his army, which attacked Israel. So this army is supposed to attack Israel, right? And save Jerusalem and rule as king and high priest, exactly like Mashiach ben David. In Islam, we have the flip side. The raising the dead, the claiming divinity, the worshipping of the Son of God in Christianity. What are these attributes of other than Masih ad-Dajjal? Even the Antichrist in hadith is mentioned as having a ruddy appearance and curly hair. This is exactly how Jesus is depicted in all paintings. European, the West. He's even associated with one eye. And I'm going to bring this. Who's the only people that have one eye in their currency?
Is there something about this androgynous type look look as well. I mean,
Yeah.
people who follow the narrations of Dajjal, they say that Dajjal could be even
Right.
androgynous as
Right.
well. You know,
Yeah,
there's so many similarities,
yeah.
even with So when you look at what you're talking about, these depictions, not Isa alayhi
Yes.
salam, no, not
It's
Isa
not
alayhi
him.
salam,
Clearly,
these
it's not him,
depictions
right?
of Jesus,
Yeah.
or whoever this is, and I think you're right. You're basically drawing the parallels between all of these figures, which are essentially shaitan in different forms. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And look, we go to Matthew 21:42.
Mm.
You know what it says? Jesus allegedly says, have you never read in the scriptures, the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. So this stone is related to eyes. And guess what? A Christian that studies the Bible knows there's only one type of structure in the world possible in architecture that can be a capstone and a cornerstone at the same time. A pyramid.
Right.
And so they will tell you, Christians that study the occult, the true position of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, quote unquote, is the eye on top of that pyramid. He's on top of that pyramid.
Yes.
That's his place. That's been co-opted by Lucifer, right?
Right.
What are the odds that the antichrist is associated with one eye and the US dollar bill, the big powerhouse military might of the West, and Christianity for that matter, is on the back of the US currency with this quote from the New Testament? I mean, come on, like, it's very obvious. Even when you put in, which we'll do later with Horus and Egyptian mythology, it's uncanny resemblance. And guess what? He's followed by Jews. Islam agrees that Dajjal is followed by Jews. Christianity says many Jews will follow Jesus as Lord. The Jews will follow Messiah ben David. The Dajjal and Islam. It makes sense.
Yep.
Now,
the parallels are not a coincidence. Yep.
Nope, there's too many, right? It would have to be like 1 in a million, right? If this was the case. Maybe I'm reading into it. I don't know. I would appreciate if someone can explain this. And why haven't we had this?
So wait, let me get this straight. What you're saying is that that dollar bill that many of us have become familiar with for for a few reasons, more than one. But that pyramid with the eye at the top, we used to think that was the representation of the Dajjal, at least Sunni Muslims, maybe even Shia Muslims. But what you're saying is that Jesus is represented in the Bible as being that cornerstone, and they're saying that Lucifer has co-opted that position. So basically, we're connecting that Jesus is essentially, basically, Shaitan is fooling us with
Amazing,
Jesus
isn't
and
it?
Dajjal, fooling us with Jesus and Dajjal, which don't exist. It's him, essentially.
There you go. The powers that be clearly are ahead of us. If we just found out a few months ago, yes, Isa salam is not coming back, Mahdi is not a person coming back, they've known way longer, you know? And if they know that, what do you think they're going to do?
Yep.
They're going to
present us. They're going to present us.
They're gonna, you know, it's amazing. It's like, okay, we're always tempted by shaitan, right? And he will allow you to sin. He will allow you to do whatever you want as long as it's bad. He will make you believe that your race is superior than everyone else. He will allow you to do all these things that are bad for you and for the world. Why? Because it doesn't matter how you go to hell for him. The fact is, he just wants that to be your destination because he has a grudge against Bani Adam. Clearly, the Quran is the only account of this. There's no other book I know of that shaitan.
Really?
Well, look, I mean, in the Bible, we're not given an explanation. Why does shaitan tempt Adam and Eve?
I never thought that, yeah. Okay, interesting. This is
Allah
good to know,
commands him to prostrate. He doesn't. And his explanation tells you a lot. I'm made of fire. I'm better than him.
Yep.
We just know that basically in Judaism, Christianity, that yes, Lucifer had some kind of position and Adam did replace him. But we're never taught how that happened. In Surah Al-Baqarah, it's very clear. And what if the whole reason behind these end times events is just like the ultimate like plan in the very end? They've had so much time to prepare. They even put it in the Bible. They even put it on the currency. They made the world politics revolve around Israel. Why?
They put that eye everywhere in the movies, music
everywhere.
videos, everywhere.
And
so
look,
they want
it even connects, strangely, it even connects to the Tariq discussion we had, because Jesus Christ and Lucifer are both the morning star in the Bible. Nobody can explain that. I mean, now it makes sense why. That was never Isa al-Masih to begin with.
Exactly.
Messiah doesn't mean Christ. So many things have been defined for us.
Please say that. Please say that again. People don't quite.
Al-Masih doesn't mean Christ. And if you want to correct me on that, just look at the word Mashiach, Messiah. That doesn't define the word. It's just a reiteration of Masih. That's it.
Christ is Horus. Yeah, Christ is Horus.
Well, I'm inclined to believe that, simply because there's so much evidence that points to the civilization of Pharaoh, and what they believed in is analogous to what Christianity pushes. Analogous.
In fact, Horus, Christians.
Yeah.
Christians.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, the evidence is there. We've had it on our screen.
It's before. Even in the Quran. Like, if you don't believe in the Quran, fine. But if you believe
that's
in
why
the
they're
Quran,
not the Nasara. That's why they are not the Nasara.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Obviously, this is another part of the presentation, but I'll just be brief. Basically, the Quran totally goes against all of our definitions we've been given since birth about all of these religions. And there's a reason for that, because if it's all built on a house of cards, right? You can't take out one card without them all falling. You have to go to the natural conclusion. If we have depictions of wine and bread and crucifixion, all in the context of Egypt in the Quran, then there's nothing for us to conclude other than Christianity's origins, teachings, context, everything, traditions are around the civilization of Egypt. No question. Just read Surah Yusuf. Why? Here's the question: why does Yusuf tell his companion, "You will serve wine to your Lord"?
Yes. You've got me on that. I know. Gives me chills even right now.
About.
It gives me chills even right now as you're saying this. You're right. I know.
Imran, or Uwais, I forget who, I'm kind of all over the place, but basically, the one who was called God in the Quran, that was a man, is Pharaoh. He was the Lord. He was their Lord. I am your Rabb, most exalted Lord. That's what he says. And clearly, Allah does not drink wine. So you just put it together. Who has a holy sacrament of wine and bread? And then what does Yusuf's vision say this is? No, it's not bread on your head. You're crucified and it's eating from your head, the bird. So this is another thing too. This is another thing too, but this is why Antichrist in Islam is a Western Dajjal. We've been taught that he's from the East, maybe to hide the fact, that these two religions are at odds. I know that there's discrepancies, no doubt, but somewhere in the middle, that's where the truth lies. Rome is unequivocally the army that fights the Mahdi. So how could the Dajjal come from Persia? He will fight on behalf, the Western Church, the Rome, will fight on behalf of the Islamic Antichrist or Christian Jesus Christ. And hence why in Islam, the defeat of the Antichrist will prompt the breaking of the cross and the slaughter of swine. This is known for Christianity, only in Christianity alone. West, right? Please explain to me why
Mm.
I've been, when you go to the masjid, this is
Mm.
not elaborated upon.
Mm.
It's just assumed, just go to hadith, talk to a scholar. Well, yeah, we
Yeah.
can talk to a scholar. They're just going to regurgitate what they were taught as well. It's just a long line of the same information. I want some kind of analysis. And hopefully, inshallah, we can benefit people through these types of analyses.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Yep.
You go to the next one. This is the more interesting one, in my opinion, because it concerns Muslims, right? Everyone wants to follow the Mahdi. I even think about the Mahdi at some point in my life, thinking, "Wow, this is going to be great. I'm gonna, I'm ready. I'm ready to go to the Middle East.
We've all been there. We've all
kick some butt, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's just you're a young guy. You have this, vigor.
Yeah.
But guess
Let's
what?
go. Let's go to die. Let's go to die for the sake of Allah. There's nothing better than that.
This is.
Let's
I
go
mean,
do.
how many nasheeds have you seen with this? We're gonna have the fragrance of bakhor and oud, and musk. I mean,
and how easy is it? Like, we don't gotta change who we are. We just gotta take a flight, go there, fight, die, and you're done. Right?
it's interesting.
Easy. It's the easy way out.
This is no different. I mean, it's exact same steps as you just outlined, Brother Imran, as someone joining ISIS. It's exact same steps as someone going to fight against Russia and Ukraine. So you're not going to tell me that that's
with good
natural.
intention. I mean, I'm sure with good intention.
For sure.
We're all
look at the
suffering in this
buildup.
world. We're all suffering. We'll want to wait out of this test. But the test is a bit harder than that. It seems.
And look at the buildup of what's happening in Israel right now. Right, all these emotions, all this hatred.
Right.
And people are now like, yeah, let's go right now. Forget the Mahdi. Let's just start our own thing. And then by the time it's all good and ready, he'll probably be here. So it's like the easy way out, being with your emotions, and it's just they say,
that's the last thing I used to hear. That's the last thing I used to hear. We have to build ourselves in the model of the Mahdi so that the Mahdi comes.
Oh, true.
That's the latest explanation for why he's not coming. And you have to.
Right.
We have to be ready.
So let's not be like the Prophet now. Let's be like the Mahdi. Like, it's just.
Well, he's the descendant of the Prophet, right? I mean, he has his name. His birth is from him. He will speak Arabic. He will look like him. He will look exactly like him.
And then what the hadith says that the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, he came down as a military general to fight with the sword, right? To fight with the sword, and that's exactly what the Mahdi will do,
right? By the sword, yeah. Even Jesus Christ in Christianity, he's not coming back as a Prince of Peace. He's coming back with a sword. Interesting.
It's very interesting that
war.
I'm glad you brought this up, because that's all you hear, right? That they say, they don't know how to handle Islam because Muhammad was a warlord, whereas Christ is a man of peace.
No.
So you've just brought up the very interesting that he's coming back to kill, right? Coming back to slave.
Isa Masih, the real person, exactly like you just pointed out, the real person in the Quran is a Muslim, is a believer. No doubt, he's a Nabi. And I think that it's interesting that what you get from the Bible is that hour when Isa returns with his disciples, that seems to have already happened. Because it says, I will come quickly, and then the crucifixion happens. Obviously, it's not him. And he instructs his followers to exchange their belongings for swords and then fight, make jihad in his own lifetime. And then you have descriptions of scorpions and stuff in the book of Revelation. Some Christians on the fringe, they actually believe the book of Revelation already happened. The millennium reign of Jesus Christ already happened, which would make sense because in the Quran, Isa fulfilled his role, his purpose. I don't want to go into there, but it would be interesting if all that happened, the book of Revelation already happened in some grand war in the past. And
maybe we should open up a sword manufacturer.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Right? Or
it seems
a weapons manufacturer, because it seems like they're going to be the ones prospering in all of this.
You
Right,
made a
right,
very good point.
right.
Let's see how 2024 goes for me. I might take you up on that.
I mean, look, there's a website called Deagle, right? I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure
yeah,
people are aware.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know if it's still
The
active, but it
forecasting
was
of
at
the
the point.
numbers, being reduced of population
Yeah, and they're
around the
into
world.
military weapons as well, right? How much
Mhm.
weapons and stuff are used. So I think that what we're seeing here is a big war. That's what it's boiling down to. And please, if you're a Christian, don't tell me that Jesus is coming back with a sword because he's just going to divide the believers from the non-believers. That's a bit, it's a bit naive. He's coming with a sword in the exact same way a sword is used,
So
right?
exactly.
Yes.
So how can you say that Islam is about freedom of choice when you're gonna come down with a sword?
Right, right. No,
Look, the whole
it's
conversion thing, look, on both sides, it contradicts. Look, you say he's the
on
man of
both
peace,
sides.
but yeah, he's coming to kill, right? And even on our side, the belief that Isa alayhi Islam is coming back to judge and give people a choice, either convert to Islam or die by the sword.
Yes.
You know, obviously, come and see the
No
parallels,
choice.
yeah, right? No
It came
choice.
from, yeah,
Whereas first
same
of all,
people.
you know, in the Quran, the judgment is from Allah on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and He says that which would everyone is free to, was it la ikraha fid din, you're free to you're free to be in the deen or not, and if Allah wanted he would have made everyone on earth mu'mins. Allah says this
Right,
in the Quran. If he
Even
wanted, he
right.
would have made
yeah,
everyone on earth mu'mins. Yeah,
even Shaitan
Mhm.
says in hellfire that you
yeah,
were given the choice. You accepted the
Yes,
choice. So
yes.
there
It's always
is the
that.
element of choice that he even says.
yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
has to be. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Basically,
yeah,
the
if you're
conversion does not exist. Converts do not exist.
right, right,
Conversions do not
right.
exist. There's no such thing as converts and conversions. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. It's like when you brought up
yeah,
Elon Musk earlier. At some point,
yeah, yeah.
if he became Muslim reading the Quran, I'm sure people will defend him tooth and nail as soon as he
Oh,
says
yeah.
his Shahada, even if
Yep.
he makes all kinds of blatant blunders and everything.
Mm,
And
yep.
and
Yep.
this is part of the problem. It's not
Mm.
about the Ummah. It's about this
Well,
like club,
well.
right?
It's not far fetched, is it? Andrew Tate was probably the first one of many to come. Yeah.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Mm,
But here's the kicker. It's like if you're a Muslim, please don't just acknowledge the faults of Christianity.
mm,
Understand what's going on in the mainstream understanding of Islam. And
mm,
it's not Al-Islam. It's just called
yeah.
Islam, nominally,
Mm,
right? This could be
mm,
anything.
mm,
And then in Christianity, if you're a Christian, please understand. Yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of issues with this body of work called hadith. Quran is
mm,
another thing. We can debate that.
mm,
But in Christianity, please acknowledge the Bible
mm,
is not the word of God. They all acknowledge this, by the way, anyway. But
mm,
you can't use that to wield around, hey, you preaching anti-Christian things. Well,
mm,
fundamentally, yes, because Christianity, as we know it, has nothing to do with Jesus Christ, nothing to
mm,
do with Isa Masih whatsoever.
mm,
And
mm,
by the same token, does Islam today have anything to do with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him?
mm.
I mean, it seems like it
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
against his
It's
entire
very
character.
emotional. Yeah, very
It
emotional
is.
topic.
It's
Yeah.
charged.
Mm,
I'm
mm,
sorry. It's very
mm.
charged. I mean,
I mean, I know how I
I
feel
struggle with
as
this
we
every
talk
day.
about these. Yeah, yeah, I struggle with this exactly. I still struggle
So
with this every day. But
join the
yeah,
club, right?
we overcome this knowing
Yes.
that yeah, we've got no choice.
Yes.
We have to stick by this. Our conscience won't leave it alone. We have to do this. We are going to be judged. So yeah,
Yes. If
I'm
this
glad you
helps
brought it up.
one, because look,
I yeah,
there's children being
mm,
scorched and burned
mm,
alive,
yes,
buried under rubble at this
mm,
very moment.
mm,
And there's also nations being
yeah,
televised on social
mm,
media as the most evil, satanic people possible. And you know who
mm,
I'm talking about.
yes, yes, yes.
Is this just a coincidence? I thought about it.
Mm, mm,
How is it so obvious that these people in this country with a
mm,
star on their flag
mm,
are put off as so just because clearly they're brainwashed. I mean, let's be honest,
mhm,
like nobody actually believes that normally growing up as a child. No,
mm,
they're brainwashed like everyone else in the world. but they're brainwashed to a very specific ideology that alienates them from the rest of the world. And why? Because they have to bring about, in my opinion, these events to be somehow, quote unquote, fulfilled in this self-fulfilling prophecy. People will ally against Israel. Why? All the nations of the world today, with the exception of America and some small countries, have gone and said, give aid to Palestine.
Yep.
And nothing's happening because America's vetoing. And you know what? That's not just the natural course of events. The United Nations is just a theater, you know? So they're doing it on purpose. They're framing it in a way. And I have full support to brothers and sisters in humanity, whatever you call yourself. But they will make us annihilate each other over what? Over a lie.
Yeah, exactly.
And that brings me to this.
This is the main point. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't want to stop you from going through the presentation, but this is the main point, exactly what you made.
Yes.
Us fighting each other over lies. That's the main thing. The two J's, Jesus, Jerusalem, for me, those are still the biggest. And you are elaborating on this. You're giving the more detailed picture behind all of this.
Yeah. Because look, in Judaism, Mashiach ben Yosef, he's a military commander. There are many Messianic Jews, and they will tell you this openly. They just don't connect it to Islam or any other religion. He's a military commander, and he specifically fights the Western enemy of Israel. That's called Edom. Every Jew will tell you that's Europe, Christians, the West. The Talmud says he will be killed in the war of Gog and Magog. This is, in fact, the final battle between East and West. Now, I don't agree it's the final battle, but this is how they're portraying it, because they have to make it seem much bigger than it is, as Imran says, the hype from it, right? He is thought to prepare the dominion for Mashiach ben David. This is the very same Jesus Christ from Christianity we talked in the previous slide. And guess what? In Islam, this is analogous to the Mahdi. He comes with an army, banners from the east. Why? Because he's fighting the west. It just makes sense. He's not going to bring his army where he's behind enemy lines. And then the same place where Masih Dajjal arises, having an army with oriental features. And the Mahdi will fight for the religion of Prophet Muhammad. Clearly, I mean, there's no debate, right? He captures Jerusalem, Constantinople. He's actually even aided by an army of Rum, and he will be martyred by another Rum. There's two Rums in Hadith, and in the war, and so he actually is not able to kill the Islamic Antichrist himself. Why do you think that is? Because the Islamic Antichrist is the Son of God, and I imagine that they will establish some kind of religion when this war is done. That's kind of like what these religions will be seen as, an obsolete version of what they want, and they will have the next phase. So in Christianity, this Messiah ben Yusuf is actually the Antichrist. Why? Because he's also described as a military commander. He follows a false religion of peace. They even tell you a false religion of peace. That's what Islam is always broadcast as. According to a false prophet, which they will always tell you is the Prophet Muhammad. Now, this is the Mahdi. They're telling you in Christianity the Mahdi is the Antichrist. This is not hard to find. There's no debate in Christianity that Mahdi is the Antichrist of Christianity. No debate. But here in Islam, we're still confused who the Dajjal is. The Dajjal is Jesus Christ of Christianity. The war of Gog and Magog in Christianity involves the Islamic Mahdi leading an army of the Middle East and Africa. Why did they pick these two regions of the world? That's the Islamic world, basically, the Arabic-speaking Islamic world. And they're aided by a northern army. There's no mystery around who this is. It's obviously Russia. I mean, you just look in the news, it's very clear. Russia is allied with this Eastern nexus of power. And China, I mean, if the Dajjal has this oriental features, I mean, it's sorry to say, because I feel this is a disservice to a huge portion of humanity from hadith. They're going to attack with the army of Dajjal. And they're going to attack Israel in Christianity. This is key. Israel is seen as a Western thing in Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And in Islam, Israel is seen as Dajjal's domain because it's occupied and he has to liberate it.
Mm-hmm.
So God intervenes to defeat the army of the Mahdi in Christianity.
Yep.
You can see there's two champions of Satan. And it's funny that we mentioned Elon Musk because in Halloween on Twitter, shortly after he purchased the platform, he dressed up as this costume called Champion of Satan.
Right.
Just a coincidence, I guess. And it was his profile. I don't even use Twitter, but I think it is even to this day when it's called X. Funny that they changed the platform to X, which signifies death. It's also a cross. And then Facebook changed it also to Meta, which signifies death as well. If you look into Hebrew and Arabic, Maut.
Okay. Oh,
so I don't know if there's a connection there, but please, if you have any questions, be sure to reflect on what I've stated here. That I've tried to spend time understanding myself, because there's no discipline about this. These things we're making videos about. And think to yourself, if, let's say, the script for the New World Order is the Bible, and they're going to carry that out. Clearly, hadith is going to go right line in line with that. No question. And on both sides, you're going to have people saying, see, this confirms this hadith. See, this confirms this verse in the Bible. This is why they made it this.
With no regard to the Quran.
Of course not. Of course not. Why would we? I mean, it's so sad what's happened to Bani Adam. Like, we're in such a sorry state, honestly.
Yeah, it's all theater, right? It's all theater. Like, it's something that feeds your dopamine, I guess, to have this abstract. It's gonna happen in the future.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, if we carry on down this line, I wonder if, I'm sure, I mean, this has always been the case. The more you go down the truth, the more people you lose. Because that is the nature. People do want to be entertained, and people don't want to look at things that might make them have to change what it is that they follow, what it is that they do, the rituals, whatever it is, their beliefs. This is definitely a challenge. So it's a challenge for humanity. It's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for our viewers. But we have to talk about these things because nobody else is talking about them, and it can't be that we are just the only group of people that see things for what we believe they truly are. Because I mean, even when we followed the false eschatology before, what was true was, there are certain things just not being spoken of in the Jummah khutbahs. But then after a while, it became clear to me that actually in the Jummah khutbahs, for the most part, hardly anyone's speaking about the Quran, what the Quran says. A whole lot of other things, but it's hardly about the Quran. And this is still the same problem with the analysis of what's taking place in the world today. And how we are supposed to prepare is still the lack of coming from the Quran. It's plucked verses maybe, like a few words here or a verse there, and then a whole load of other things to say on top of that, which is probably not even connected to that verse or those words in the Quran. But this is so. We are continuing doing what it is that we do, and we just hope that it benefits others, not just ourselves. Inshallah.
Look, if you're comparing things to viewers and that stuff and followers and there's a reason for that, sure, but go to chapter 60, Surah Al-Mumtahana, and every Muslim can read this for themselves if they're honestly a believer in the Quran. What does Allah say is an excellent pattern twice for the believers today? Exactly what Ibrahim a.s. did. What did he do?
Right.
He left his people with those with believed with him. You think that was a large group? I think it was very much a small group. And he makes a dua to not make us objects of torment for the believers and forgive us. This is exactly what this is painting out. 2 times, Allah points us to this pattern of Ibrahim, of distancing himself from his people and what they worship. His people, his father,
his people. That's right.
his
That's right.
forefathers, his
Yeah.
ancestral traditions, everything,
Yeah.
his entire worldview up until that point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
guess
This
what?
is yeah. Sorry.
He's
Yeah.
blessed. He's blessed to be the father
Mm.
of the believers, of the Muslims today.
Mm.
And basically, he corrected a huge wrong, because what were the people worshiping in his time?
Mm.
Apparently,
The Trinity.
Ibrahim, the Trinity, correct?
Yeah.
But apparently, Ibrahim accused his father and his people of worshiping Shaitan, Iblis.
Yep.
What do you think is going to happen if we make the same mistake, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
think Allah is going to be generous? No, those people, they're given a very bad title, like khasirin, or like the lowest losers in the world, for what they tried to do to Ibrahim by trying to put him in the fire. Okay, this is what he had to go through, and it's a sign. It's like recorded that they did that, and on the day of judgment, it's not going to look good for that. If you take, like, it's almost like vigilantes, like they have a certain idea of the world, they don't think. He was just using proofs the whole time. Hajj, hujjah, hajjah, they're all related. Reasoning, use your brain. This is Ibrahim's legacy. This is his millet. Understanding how to use what Allah gave you as a human being to discern the truth from the falsehood. I mean,
do you remember the Arabic an pattern that you mentioned in Surah Mumtahina? Do you remember the Arabic?
It says, قد كانت لكم أسوة حسنة. That's it.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, it's like a sound.
May Allah make us amongst those who are following this excellent pattern and continue to stick to the truth.
Yeah, because Allah tells you on the Day of Judgment, you have no one to help you. Your spouse, your husband, your brother, your sister, your parents, nothing. And he did the same thing. All the prophets had shayateen from their family members, from their people. And it didn't make a difference. It's like, this is the reality of the world. So to conclude this portion, in the next slide, our 2 messiahs that we've inherited from this Jewish understanding.
Brother Imran might just be, if he can hear us, good to go to the next slide.
Oh, okay, no worries. Yeah.
These 2. This is
basically, this is the beginning of the world war engineered by the powers that be to mimic the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic eschatological traditions. Will the Islamic Mahdi from Hadith tradition be nothing more than the Jewish Messiah ben Joseph and Christian Antichrist? Will the Christian Jesus Christ from the Book of Revelation be nothing more than the Jewish Messiah ben David and the Islamic Messiah Dajjal? To understand the ultimate end game of Shaitan, we have to understand how the world is set up from the beginning. And we'll discover this. We'll talk about this. So on the next slide, we have this concept from Islamic sources called Al-Malhama Al-Kubra. And this is the war of Gog and Magog. There's no question. This is, even though Gog and Magog comes after this war, this is what Christianity and Judaism identify as Gog and Magog's war. Because Gog and Magog are not these strange zombie-like creatures from some alien race that lives underground that are still trapped. You can just turn the news and you will see Gog and Magog in real life. If people haven't understood already, we're talking about these 2 coalitions. These two,
the red, blue,
the red and the blue. They're humans.
Blue corruptors.
Yep. And as I understand it, there's nothing from the Quran that indicates these people are still trapped. They're actually the people. You can see for yourself if you compare Surah Yasin, the opening verses, and compare Surah Al-kahf, the story of Dhul Qarnayn. It's describing the same people. And guess what? They have divided the world into 2. And this is just a speculation of what it could look like, where you have Protestants, Zionists, Jews, Catholics, these denominations, these geographical regions on one side, and their commander is this, I call them Jesus, Masih, Dajjal, Ben David, to put the terms in one person. And then the other side, you have Imam Mahdi, the Antichrist, Ben Joseph. That's
I
it.
like this. This is what we have to do. This is what I do when it comes to teaching the truth. You have to put these words together.
Now, in your head, you won't be confused because you can fill in the blanks. It's one person now. This is what these people do. They create copies and mirrors and reflections and through history, through time, through politics, everything, when it's really one thing and only one thing. And Allah, He casts this, obliterates this falsehood, and He leaves you with only the truth. So obviously these followers on the East, Magog, they're going to be anti-Zionist Jews, Orthodox Christians, majority of the Muslim world, Middle East, Africa, Russia, China, Iran. Okay, so this is not surprising. If you follow politics, and Muslims definitely do follow politics, you can kind of expect this. This is not reaching in any way. And I just put this hadith on there because people value hadith very, very much so. And this is from Sahih al-Bukhari. The hour will not be established until two large groups fight each other, whereupon there will be a great number of casualties on both sides. And they will be following one and the same religious doctrine. Think about that. Allah describes the Yahud and Nasara, millatihim, one millat, even though they're two groups. If this is talking about Russia and America having World War III, where does the Mahdi fit into that?
You're connecting Yahud and Nasara with Yajuj, Majuj, right?
Well, in a sense, because even though they could be describing two different aspects, it's always boiled down to the same thing. You know, in different ways, microcosms of macrocosms. And so, wait a second, I thought the World War III is between the Mahdi and the world. No, Hadith says it's the same religious doctrine. Doesn't that point to the fact that this is staged? That these people collaborate? We know Gog and Magog collaborate.
Doctrine are the absolutely appropriate words. Religious doctrine.
That's straight from Hadith website. I didn't even translate that. And this same religious doctrine, there's no debate.
Actually, sorry, it's not right. It's supposed to be religious indoctrination or indoctrination.
Yeah, exactly. So al-malhama, it relates to the word for meat. So you can imagine this is actually not a war, it's a butchering. The great butchering. That's what it means in Arabic. They could have put harb for war, but they didn't. They are expecting this to be a massive, massive massacre. And it says that in that hadith right there, great number of casualties on both sides. So think twice.
Allah protect us and guide us.
I mean, think twice, right? If you follow hadith, if you follow the Quran, what is going to remain at the very end? Hadith or Quran? Quran. You don't even have enough time in your life to study every hadith. If you go to the next slide, this is what we're talking about. What are the consequences of this? Well,
should we continue this next time,
inshallah? I think that's a good place to. Sure.
Yeah, this is like engineering collapse of faith. Like this is where we were talking about at the beginning.
Comes full circle, right?
So okay, so I'm guessing you're going to continue on this. But I can see where you're going. But basically, this is what we mentioned midway in the conversation, that the whole idea is to make us lose faith, and so therefore we need to strengthen our iman by what we know to be absolutely true and to point out the deception. But I like what you got here. Maybe we can start off next time with this, inshallah. If we continue. But those of us that are familiar, the lyrics. I don't want to ruin it, but yes, I'm very familiar. Imagine there is no heaven.
Well, it says no hell below us, above us only sky, no countries, no religion, nothing to kill or die for, and world peace. World peace, isn't that lovely? Who is in charge of that peace, though?
Let's begin with
Yeah,
that next time.
yeah. It's been planned from the very beginning, and you know, if we have to live through it, then God help us. Allah protect us from this fitna, because it's panning out, like you said, that it's going to shatter. It's not going to break lower their net. It's going to shatter it from the very core. And we see this happening already in Palestine. Many people in Islam today are just, they're losing their faith. It's very unfortunate to see, but
we can't save the world. I think this is where the strength comes from, knowing that we can't save the world, and Allah even speaks in this kind of language in the Quran: "Save yourselves." So therefore, just for doing this. Really appreciate
Inshallah.
this, because I can't do this the way you put this together. And obviously this is not over, because everything that's happening is not over. It's only just begun. So we'll be back next week, inshallah.
Inshallah,
Yeah, inshallah. So we will see everybody on the next video. And as always, peace be upon you all. And jazakallah khair for tuning in. And we'll see you in the next one, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa
Assalam.